know, it may just be me, but I really got a feeling like we could catch fire and have a great season, huh? Now, who's with me?
Woo! The electric in the air!
Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be
The Cleats First, Logic Second Football Podcast with your hosts, Alexander Lauber and Phil Almodovar.
Welcome to day 4 of the Cleats First Logic Second January 2021 first annual Transfer Bonanza special. Phil, we're here, and today we'll be talking about the Bundesliga.
Yes, the Bundesliga. A lot going on here. Lots of teams that might need some help, might be offloading. We'll get into it all right now.
It's definitely been an interesting start to the season. We've seen a pretty tight race. Bayern is strong as always and carrying over that amazing performance both domestically and internationally. But starting with them, it seems like the time might be right to start making some moves out of the club and repositioning players within the club. So first and foremost, looking at the defense, it might be time to field the market for David Alaba. And if the price is right, cash in on it. If not, re-sign him. We know his value is at I believe, a career high. I think he still has a future at the club. But if you can get the money that he's valued for him, I think it's definitely worth moving on and giving more time to your younger center back, someone like Lucas Hernandez, who can play either on the left back or at left center back. But we've seen his playing time diminish, obviously due to injury. But I think it'd be interesting to transition him full-time to the left center back starting position. And then outside of him, having guys like Nicolas Sule, Nianzou, Boateng, who will be out the door soon enough because of his age, and we know he's been rumored, but had a breakout or had a career reinvigorating season last year. And there's good potential in some of the young players like a Chris Richards. But I think another move that could be made internally is it's time to move Benjamin Pavard from right back to center back, because I think he does have that prowess and potential to be a great starting center back somewhere down the line. And he isn't the paciest exactly, so it may be time to bring in a bona fide starting right back. And if I were in charge, I would look to do that. Just that. Sarr is good depth, however, is not starting quality for Bayern Munich, in my opinion. And from there, I'd look to someone that Bayern was linked with through the summer, and I'd try and get that move over the line, and that is Max Aarons from Norwich City in the Championship. If you look at Aarons, he's sound defensively, proactive offensively. He looks to generate chances greater than just a simple pass or a cross, and those traits definitely transition amazingly into this type of a Bayern team. From there, if you look at the center midfield, there's obviously great talent in that team. Kimmich and Goretzka are both world-class players. Tolisso is very good. Roca is up and coming. Martinez needs to be eventually shipped out down the line, and the kids have a ton of talent, but there hasn't really been a real Thiago replacement brought in. And for that, I think that Bayern Munich ought to make the move for Eduardo Camavinga from Stade Rennes. He's a great two-way midfielder, active all over the field, and he's not really panicked in difficult situations. And he has great decision-making skills. I can see him fitting in that midfield nicely with the likes of Kimmich, Goretzka, and Tolisso, and aiding that Bayern team and growing to his full potential there. So Phil, what 3 moves, if you were in charge of transfer decisions, would you look to make in the January 2021 transfer window for Bayern Munich?
Well, first off, I would end up selling David Alaba. I think it's a time to go in a different direction at center back. I think Chris Richards definitely is going to have a future at Bayern, and a massive one. So he's definitely an option. So is Benjamin Pavard, as you said, Alex, moving him over to center back. He can play that position. We've seen that. Also, if you do want to, after selling David Alaba, get a replacement for him at a low cost and a high reward, Mohamed Simakan is a terrific option for Bayern. from Strasbourg. The 20-year-old center back has had a solid season, but also, much to Bayern's pleasure, it would seem, has fit as a Swiss Army knife into Strasbourg's starting lineup, having played center back, right back, and holding midfielder on numerous occasions. Bayern do like that Swiss Army knife, as we've seen with both Pavard and Joshua Kimmich being able to play multiple positions within the squad. Also, Bayern have been linked recently with Gianluca Busio. Busio would not exactly be a drastic need, as Bayern are fine on the wings, but just adding that youth depth is always a good thing, and Busio is due for a move to Europe after shining in the MLS.
Interesting picks there. Let's move on to Bayer Leverkusen. Phil, where would you start when it comes to Leverkusen and strengthening their squad?
I would start in the midfield. They do have some solid midfielders. We've seen some really nice play there, but Baumgartlinger is not getting any younger. It's time to reinforce that, whether that be with a Lucas Torreira or another holding midfielder of some sorts that you could find. That would be a major, major help. Also, they could use a right back. They could use help on that back line, especially the right side. And if they want to stay in the Bundesliga, Kevin Mbabu has been playing really well for Wolfsburg. They would have to pay up for him, but he wouldn't be a bad call, bad decision there. Alex, what do you think?
So when I look at Leverkusen, one of the first things that I see, and I see as a need that needs to be addressed, is the midfield pool, which is quite shallow. Above all, like you said, they're in need of a defensive midfielder. And I actually look over to the Netherlands at AZ Alkmaar at their 22-year-old captain, Teun Koopmeiners. They have the money to throw around from the Havertz deal. I'm not sure how pricey of a transfer that would be, but definitely be talent to immediately boost their roster and keep the club's strong form up. I mean, if you look at his play, he's dynamic, he's versatile, he has strong passing, great range on his passes, and great vision on those, and he's a set-piece specialist. So I think it brings that offensive boost that would help push Leverkusen and continue their strong form, but also at the same time helping that strong offensive core. From there, if you do look at their left back and right back situation, especially with the two Benders on their way into retirement, both having gotten seriously injured this season, they are in need of a fullback. They're rumored to be interested in Brandon Williams, the young right-footed 20-year-old left back from Manchester United. And I think it would be an interesting move. Obviously, being a right-footed left back, it's not something exactly common, and he can transition to the right back position, so you have versatility there. He has great speed and is great on the counterattack, and it helps since he plays out wide, and with such a strong defensive core like Leverkusen have, you can afford to have that player developing at the club and playing, in those wider positions, knowing that if he isn't able to get back, which I don't see why he wouldn't since his pace is so great, you have the support in case of emergency. And I would definitely look to bring him in permanently if the price is right. Otherwise, look to loan him in, see how he works at the 6 months, and then play it by ear from there. And then I think one of the last moves strategically that needs to be made by Leverkusen is not biting on any offers for youth. So Tapsoba, Diaby, and Bailey, even though he's been rumored to leave a couple of transfer windows now, hold on to them. Things are working out well, and I think it can only get better for Bayer Leverkusen.
Interesting to hear your takes on a club that are trying their best to be contenders in the Bundesliga. Speaking of title contenders in the Bundesliga, RB Leipzig have shown that they also have emerged in that top three. Alex, what can they do to cement themselves in the title race?
I think the Szoboszlai signing was already a huge first step to reinforce and strengthen that squad that's already so offensively dangerous. But I think it's also time to look to loan out one of the younger surplus center forwards, so the likes of Burakovsky or Novoa. And to that point, it may be time to cash in on an attacking midfielder and that surplus in that position. Some of them are playing out wide, mind you, so there is coverage there, but with Szoboszlai coming in, that obviously potentially takes a spot away from one of the established attacking midfielders. And if you look between the likes of Nkuku and Olmo, Nkuku does, in my opinion, fall short of the potential and the offensive prowess of Danny Olmo. So I wouldn't shop him around, but I definitely consider any serious offers that come into the club. And again, to my point, like I said with Leverkusen, I wouldn't dump any strong youth pieces. So your Upamecano, Konate, Klosterman, and Mukiele, players like those, especially your 3 young core center backs, I wouldn't be moving any of them out right now. Especially with Champions League football continuing on, they can make a push, and I can see them continuing to be a strong team. I wouldn't get rid of any of those core pieces, especially right now.
I agree, Alex. I think this club got their man when they got Dom Szoboszlai. He was the main target of this transfer window. They snagged him before it even opened. Now the goal is to keep everything intact. And the biggest thing for me, I think I go right in hand with you when I say this, Alex, is keep that defense. Upamecano and Klosterman are going to be key to this club contending in the Bundesliga in that title race. And if one of those 2 pieces leaves in January, everything could fall apart. We know what happens when a club has great offense but doesn't address their defense. You can't win with either or. You have to have both. And if they do end up losing Upamecano or Klosterman, look for RB Leipzig to try to rebound immediately and maybe try to bring in a Simakan from Strasbourg, try to jump on him before Bayern can, or if Bayern don't, to get that young replacement. We all know that RB Leipzig loves to bring in young players. They've become that kind of team along with Dortmund, the Bundesliga, and have seemingly been doing it just as good as Dortmund have over the past few years. So look for that to be also an alternative if things go south and they lose Upamecano or Klosterman.
So from RB Leipzig, let's move on to Dortmund. And Phil, what 3 moves would you look to make for Borussia Dortmund in the January 2021 transfer window?
I would just start off with selling the fat. There's a lot going on here, a lot of players, a lot of surpluses in different positions, hits being one. You have a ton of holding midfielders that you have to address. I would personally, this has become a conversation of you either have Axel Witsel in that midfield or you have Raschel in that midfield. Raschel, if you don't know who he is, young, dynamic holding midfielder, has not gotten many minutes with Dortmund and now is unsettled. Rightfully so, as in the few minutes that he has had, he's played well. Now, Dortmund have looked to go with Axel Witsel, but I would like to ship Axel Witsel out, especially with his contract coming up in the summer. I would want him gone. Get the money that you can for him and keep Raschel for the future. Axel Witsel is over 30 years old now. I tend to be one who likes to keep young players and let older players leave, but we'll see how Dortmund deal with it. Also, I would like to see Dortmund go for a right back or a left back, some fullback depth because of the fact that Guerrero has been hurt. Other players have been injured in that lineup. You need some depth there. Maybe this window isn't the window to do it with the limited funds that you have. But something that's crucial, which I do hope they do in this window, is get a new manager. May not be a player, but I think Dortmund should swing hard for Jesse Marsch. American manager currently managing for Salzburg, has proven to be able to turn good teams into great teams. He's done so with the Red Bulls. He's done so with Red Bull Salzburg. He develops young players really, really well. And Dortmund having such a big focus on young players, this could be a match made in heaven if Dortmund are able to pry him from Salzburg.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see in what direction Dortmund goes with the coaching change. But if I look at that squad, like you said, there's an absolute abundance of great offensive talent and great talent overall on that team. And I think it might just be time to move out some of those players and do a soft rebuild with the large sums of money you can get from these players. And by large sums of money, I think you know where I'm going with this. It might just be time to say goodbye to Jadon Sancho, not because he's not a great player, but if Manchester United comes back in hard again and offers a good enough sum of money, it may be time to cash in that check, let him move on, and then continue moving the club in the direction that the new manager will want to. Another player that I can see potentially leaving, and I would consider fielding offers for, being that his time with the club hasn't been as successful as the start was, or as his potential would lead you to believe it would be. And I'm talking about Julian Brandt there. Now, if I look at the defense, I like Hummels. He's getting older, but that's neither here nor there. Zagadou and Akanji are both great pieces, but I think it's the time to bring in another strong center back who will be the future of this club. And for that, I look over to Leverkusen and suggest trying to pry away Jonathan Tah from the club. Sound defensively, I think would fit perfectly right into that Dortmund roster. And from there, I think it may also be time to start fielding the market for a young goalkeeper. And for that, I actually look over to SK Slavia Praha at Andre Kolar. He has experience in European competitions, looks sharp in the crease, and could be the man to take the reins from Berkey shortly down the line as he continues, or as he begins, to reach his 30s and age.
Interesting take there, Alex. Dortmund definitely do need to address their goalkeeper situation eventually. Why not this upcoming window? Let's move on to Wolfsburg, a club looking from the outside in, definitely still not a long shot for the top four of the Bundesliga. Can they keep up their form? Alex, are there any moves they can make to really turn a corner?
When I look at Wolfsburg, I look at another team that I feel like they're on the right trajectory. I'm not sure if there's any drastic moves that they, one, would make, or two, could make to put them, in much of a better situation than they currently are in. But I think there are a couple of little moves that could be made. It might be time to move on from William and make some cash off of his sale. We see the right back position at Wolfsburg pretty flooded with Riddle Baku, who came in this past season, Kevin Mbabu, who's established himself as a good starter and a good piece at the club. So I see William as potentially being the odd man out and the one that I would look to field offers for. From there, I also look at the midfield, and I do see it being a bit on the shallow side. I would want to strengthen it there. And to that, bringing in some experience, additional experience, I would look to Arsenal actually look to bring in Granit Xhaka for a player who I think could fit the Bundesliga playing style and could potentially thrive at a team like Wolfsburg. What would you do, Phil?
Alex, first thing I would do is I think it's John Brooks's his time is up at Wolfsburg. I think Wolfsburg need to, in order to shore up that defense a little bit better, need to take a huge opportunity and sell Brooks and try to use the proceeds to buy maybe a David Alaba. It would be a little bit of a stretch, but Alaba could be the player that really sets this team over the top, can enter them into the top four. We'll see, though, if there's a small chance of that happening, but it would be a big move for Wolfsburg and one I would definitely do. Also, I would add some support up top for Weghorst. Weghorst is having a really, really good season, and if you could add another player up there creatively, maybe in the attacking midfield, you could just make that season even better. And one player who really, I think, is going for a decent price and would exemplify that is Rodrigo de Paul from Udinese. He has been having a fantastic season. If you watch him play, he would be able to get the ball out to the wide areas from the middle in order to get it to Weghorst and also maybe add another avenue to that attack.
Yeah, some interesting suggestions there. I don't know about the David Alaba. I assume he'd still sell for a ridiculously high fee that would probably be outside of Wolfsburg's budget, even with selling a player like Brooks. I think that would only scratch the surface of that transfer fee. But I guess we'll see where we go from there. But from the top of the Bundesliga, let's drop down to the boys at the bottom Schalke have had a real fall from grace this season, Phil. It may just be too far for them, but what are 3 moves that you would make that could potentially turn the season around for Schalke?
We'll talk more about Schalke in the near future, I bet. Just since the restart, going all the way back, what a tragedy it has been for Schalke, and no part in the fact that Weston McKennie leaving for Juventus, albeit on loan, was a huge mistake. Despite the fact that, yeah, he had some lackluster performances out Schalke, it's seen now that what he was lacking was the players around him. At Juventus, he has excelled in the playing time that he's gotten, and Schalke are in desperate need of that creativity in the midfield that they now lack. 3 moves I would say is bring in 3 midfielders, whether that be a Dele Alli, Basuma, Christian Eriksen. Anything would help there in that midfield. The creativity for me is lacking. I still like their young defense. Goalkeeper isn't terrible. They tend to have solid goalkeepers. That attack, they need to score goals. That's it. They need to score goals. They have no creativity to do so. 3 midfielders for me. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I would definitely agree that creativity seems to be one of the biggest things lacking from this club. I think first and foremost, they do need support in the midfield. And I think that an approach that could be taken is going back for one of the players who played for them formerly, who has had a poor showing or fallen out with their current club. And to that, I'll first and foremost start with Max Meyer. We know Max Meyer left a couple of seasons ago to Crystal Palace in the Premier League, and he was touted as a great young up-and-coming star, and he seemed like he had a lot of bright things ahead of him at Crystal Palace, and that hasn't worked out. He's been a complete flop, and maybe he can reinvigorate his career with a low-cost return or a loan till the end of the season. He's not featuring at all for Crystal Palace. He's familiar with the system, familiar with the club, so that could be a move to look to make. The other move off the top of my head, I don't know if he would want to do it, and quite frankly, I think he deserves a better club, and he would want to go play for a higher-rated club. Julian Draxler, who knows if you could get that 6-month loan over the line. I think that would be more of a stretch. But I think one of the biggest points that I do need to make, stop losing your cornerstones on freeze. They lost their starting goalie in Alex Newell. They lost Kolasinac a few seasons before, Max Meyer. I don't know why this keeps happening over and over again. That's just a side comment. But other than that, if I look at the roster, there's so much surplus on it. Maybe bringing back another, established player or leader such as a Sead Kolasinac from Arsenal can maybe inject something, like I said, with the Max Meyer idea. I don't know. To me, unfortunately, it seems like this situation may just be a bit too bleak. They're not out of it for sure, but I don't know. It's definitely not going to be an easy few months for Schalke. Phil, is there anything that can be done to recover this team's standing in the Bundesliga?
I think we'll get into it more eventually, Alex, on this podcast, but there's a lot that needs to be done, and it starts from the top and goes all the way through this organization as a whole, I think, Alex. Bringing in players this window could ease things, could get them over the line in terms of a relegation battle, but I think getting this club back to its glory, its former glory, to where it should be is going to take quite a lot.
So yeah, that wraps up our Bundesliga Transfer Bonanza special. Tune in tomorrow for the final day, where we will take a look into La Liga and see what some of the biggest clubs there can do to continue their success this season.
And of course, remember, meat first, soccer second. See you guys tomorrow.